What is Project 2025? This is from News Nation. I am as surprised to be using that as a source as you are to see it, but there you have it. A nearly 1,000-page handbook from conservative think tank, the Heritage Foundation, and what they say is a broad coalition of other organizations, offers details on how to implement Project 2025. Authors say it's a guide on what the next president needs to do so they can undo the damage to America they claim has been caused by liberal politicians. Critics, though, say it is extremist, authoritarian, and even dystopian. Essentially, the handbook acts as a manual for the next Republican president, detailing ways to reshape and give the executive branch more power. Quote, we need to flood the zone with conservatives, Paul Dans, director of the 2025 Presidential Transition Project at the Heritage Foundation, and a former Trump administration official said, according to the Associated Press. Building off 4 pillars, a policy agenda, personnel, training, and a 180-day playbook, Project 2025 organizers plan to, quote, pave the way for an effective conservative administration. Okay, so these are screenshots taken off of. Can you take the logo off there? Because I want to be able to promote these guys.
Oh yeah, good call.
All right, so illustrate to educate. They did a good job doing a down the middle, just the facts, entertaining little 7-minute video. So if you want to know more, check it out. So we're going to go back and forth between this and the News Nation article. But you see there, the 4 pillars of this theory are policy development, personnel recruitment, training, and strategic planning. So essentially, this is a conservative wish list. And I do believe a lot of these ideas, like their writings about the abortion pill that we can't pronounce, are probably further right than Trump wants to go.
A trans with a Schmendrick swinging it in a girl's bathroom.
Well, he's on the team.
It does get into that too.
Yeah.
But let's see how they plan on doing this. Okay, so the 180-day plan. As soon as they come in, they start restaffing major federal agencies and shutting some of them down. But we'll get into that. All right. So the plan hinges on the election of a Republican president and uses Trump's Schedule F policy, which was ended by Biden, to reclassify tens of thousands of federal workers as political employees to try and enable mass dismissals. A main component of Project 2025 is the firing of as many as 50,000 federal workers who conservative groups say will get in the way of his agenda. Okay, so this is one of the things that I would think Trump would like very much. And if you see them adopt any part of this plan, I would imagine it would be this one. Okay, so up until Jimmy Carter, appointments in the bureaucracy were very much patronage jobs, very much like in a city like New York. Tammany Hall used to give all the civil servant jobs to their political supporters. That's how our whole civil service became Irish for a while. That's why you still have a disproportionate number of Irish in our police and fire department, and it's multi-generational. Under Carter, they decided to stop making them political appointments and make it more of a permanent, non-political bureaucracy. Now, of course, many will say that Trump's agenda was thwarted by that permanent bureaucracy, I think with some justification. However, that would apply really to any president. Like, is there this deep state that tries to maintain a certain policy agenda no matter who the president is? Yes, I think that's rather evident. So that is what this is designed to attack. They want to bring it back to pre-Carter, where that, and this wouldn't apply to the entire federal bureaucracy, even so, but it's certain jobs that after Jimmy Carter were not considered political appointments would once again become political appointments. So their idea is if you take over the bureaucracy at the paper pusher level, then you can do the rest of this stuff that they want to do. And that if you don't, even if you issue an executive order, you have this pure permanent bureaucracy that won't carry it out.
Right, which means this whole thing is very offensive to people who don't really believe elections should matter all that much. That's the ultimate irony, is that you have the liberals saying, well, Project 2025 is going to undo democracy, so we have to make sure we win the election. Okay, well, if the election is important, that means democracy is intact, right? It seems like what you're offended by is the idea that the election is important, right? Because you want to keep these mega structures in place so that no matter who wins, you basically get your way anyway. Right.
Well, this is why supposedly left party and people supposedly on the left lionize the FBI and the CIA of all fucking things, because they resisted Trump.
Right.
They're resisting Trump, which that should terrify you. That should terrify you that the intelligence services are acting against the executive.
Right. That means the elections don't matter. That's what that means.
What could be more of a violation than these norms and guardrails that you love so much?
Right.
So moving along. All right. So this is how they are. And they are actually, I looked at some other articles. They are actually in the process of doing this. They're recruiting people and developing a personnel database of literally thousands of people so that they would, in theory, have the people ready to go. They're finding people who are ideologically inclined. They're recruiting them. They're training them so that when you whack this up to 50,000 people, you have these people ready to take their jobs who are going to do what you want them to do. They've actually created a presidential administration academy to train these people. This is real. As you said, they got a lot of money. So this is some of what they're spending it on. They're doing workshops, seminars, online courses. They mentioned they had a big fair in Iowa where they really pushed this idea. They recruited hundreds of people to line up to take these jobs when they get rid of the deep state bureaucrats who have them now. So also under Project 2025, agencies such as the U.S. Department of Education would be eliminated, and others like the Federal Trade Commission, Federal Communications Commission, and Justice Department would be put under the president's control. A so-called top-to-bottom overhaul of the Department of Justice would end FBI efforts to stop misinformation. In other words, it would end efforts by the FBI to censor the American public. That's my 2 cents. The Pentagon would abolish diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives if Project 2025 is adopted, and service members discharged for refusing the COVID-19 vaccine would be reinstated. All right, so the 180-day playbook, this is basically where they pull the whole baptism scene thing. Where they go into these federal agencies and just start reducing their size, getting rid of certain agencies, changing policies to align with their goals and objectives through executive actions. And again, this is where one step builds on the other. So now they assume they have their own operatives in the deep state to execute these policies without having to go through courts and Congress, which I think, yes, is that essentially are they trying to do an end run around a checks and balance process to execute the powers of the executive without hindrance? Yes. And regarding what you said before about elections mattering, yes, but at the same time, the founders were very skeptical of a powerful executive.
Well, yes, but are they trying to usurp the power of the legislature, or are they just trying to usurp the power of these permanent state agencies, which are not elected by anybody? I don't see anything in here that says there's certain duties that are going to be stripped from the legislative branch and reassigned to the executive. To my knowledge, and like I said, this is 922 pages. I'm not interested in reading. I ain't reading all that. Free Palestine. That's my stance on that. But the point is, I have not seen any reporting on this saying that this will take any power away from Congress or even necessarily the courts. And I could be wrong about that. So that is a big caveat that I want to say I could be wrong about that. But in terms of Congress, I haven't seen anything about this that said that they're going to usurp any of that power. I think what they're talking about is taking power away from the three-letter agencies, which are not elected by anybody and run by people we've never heard of.
Yes, and we're supportive.
And I'm not saying I'm for it. I'm just saying that seems to be what it is.
Okay, but looking at this, all right. So, hey, they're always complaining about Democrats ruling through executive action, right? Well, this seems like a plan to rule through executive action on steroids in a lot of ways.
In certain areas, absolutely. They're talking about empowering ICE, right?
Right.
I mean, that's an executive branch thing, too.
Where you're going to change policies within the agencies by installing your own people within them and then issuing executive orders that they're going to execute.
Sure. Yep.
So moving along. When it comes to social issues such as abortion, Project 2025 calls for restricting the procedure through a limit on mail order pills and penalizing providers. Other healthcare services and social services like Medicare and Social Security would be scaled back and privatized as well. Many of the Biden administration's climate change policies would be reversed, and more focus would be placed on the fossil fuel industry. So they want to make it illegal to mail abortion pills. You see the clinic here. They want to defund clinics that get any federal funding that provide reproductive health services. They want to get all abortion funding out of Medicaid. They want to get the word abortion itself out of all federal legislation and writing, I guess, under the assumption the courts threw it back to the states. So it's no longer a federal issue. So it shouldn't be in federal guidelines at all. All right. So what they
when you have a uterus and a cross in the same graphic, that's never a great sign.
Yeah. Well, that's what I'm saying. Illustrate to Educate did a nice job here.
Yeah.
All right. So cultural Marxism, which, hey, the Marxists who get offended by that, they have every right to be, because Marxism is kind of the opposite of this kind of cultural obsession. But okay. So apparently it uses the term cultural Marxism.
Yeah, the Heritage Foundation doesn't seem to give a fuck about your feelings.
Yeah, they don't give a fuck about the finer points of dialectical materialism. So what they're calling cultural Marxism. They do have in there that schools will no longer be able to change pronouns or names without parental permission, which frankly I think is rather mild that they are allowing for it under parental permission. I would think a right-wing grab bag like this would just try to ban it completely, but they're allowing for it with parental permission. So yeah, I mean, it's the kind of thing you would more or less expect. So yeah, you have over 110 conservative organizations involved in this, think tanks, advocacy groups, academic institutions like Hillsdale College. I saw a promotional video for this where they had people from Hillsdale in it. So yeah, I mean, to say this would not have influence on a Trump administration, that's like saying that the Center for American Progress wouldn't have influence on a Biden administration. Of course, it's going to have influence. There's a big difference between that and what they're trying to use to scare the living shit out of their voters, that this is the Trump agenda. And not only that, There's nothing that can stop it. There's
Right.
nothing that can put a stop to it. It's not going to go through courts. It's not going to be tied up in litigation, which of course it would be. Of course it would be if you tried to do something that radical. Some of this would never happen, even if it cleared the court, because the Trump administration wouldn't do it. So as you pointed out, this is it's a right-wing wish list. There are left-wing wish lists. Like to say, well, because they wrote it, this is what's going to happen under Trump. It's as absurd as taking a Democratic think tank's white paper and saying, well, see, that's it. That's what the Democrats are going to do.
Exactly.
Anyone can write up whatever the fuck they want. Doesn't mean that's what the administration is going to do. That having been said, again, yes, they share a lot of personnel. Clearly, a lot of these ideas are in the intellectual ether around Donald Trump. So, yes, these ideas would probably have some influence.
Yeah. I mean, look, they've been doing this for decades. I mean, I don't know how far back the Heritage Foundation goes, but they've been writing these papers for decades. This is what influenced Mitt Romney's healthcare plan, which ended up influencing Barack Obama's healthcare plan. You know, they've been around for a while.
Right.
Nothing really too new.
Please clap.